Thank you everyone for joining us for our first Micronaut Community Town Hall event of 2023. We have some exciting panelists joining us today. We've got Sergio, Graham, Steve Totten from the Unity Foundation, and Kate Holdner from St. Louis University. And I'm Jen, and I will be your moderator. We are going to jump right into it because we have a full session to get through. So okay, so we like to include this for everyone. This is a list of community resources for folks to help guide you and make sure that you have all of the resources that you need available. A few things to point out. It's always good to keep up and follow our blog. We post a lot of information, updates, releases, upcoming events and things there. So that's a good one to keep track of. And then also we have, of course, the links to our Gitter and our Twitter that we would love following on. And as far as our events, our community events, we want to make sure that everyone stays up to date with that. We update we update new training offerings there and places where you might see members of the community speaking at conferences. We also have a community resource page, and you'll find there the event support form. So if there's any upcoming events that you would like a team member to speak at, or if you yourself are speaking at an event and you would like us to help promote that, we are more than happy to do so. Just let us know. And then wanted to talk a little bit about the Micronaut Foundation. So if you're new and this is your first meeting, welcome. And if you've been here before, then hopefully you know about the Micronaut Foundation. But it's a nonprofit organization that's here to support the Micronaut framework. And so we're really excited that we have this foundation. We have a technology advisory board from folks all over, ranging from Amazon to Google to folks that work directly with the technology like Sergio and Graham. So we're really excited to be able to participate and have this foundation to support the framework. So one of the things that we have as part of the foundation are the ability for folks to sponsor and corporations to sponsor as well. So we like to recognize those whenever we can. So we do have some corporate sponsors. Those are listed here. And then we also have some other types of sponsors, which are engineering partners, as well as tools and infrastructure partners. And then you can see also a nice wall that is continuing to grow of our community sponsors. So thank you, everyone. I would like to welcome, as I said before, I have Kate Holdner here from St. Louis University and Steve Totten here from the Unity Foundation. And we're going to talk a little bit today about the Unity Foundation and the partnerships that it has with the Micronaut Foundation and St. Louis University. So welcome, Kate and Steve.
Thank you.
So Steve, would you like to tell us a little bit about the Unity Foundation?
Sure. Unity Foundation is about 3 years old now, and it's a nonprofit organization focused on leveraging open source tools and technologies and open systems, standards and so forth to work with a community of partners to uplift and empower underserved communities. We're located in the St. Louis region, but the work that we're doing can scale globally, we believe. We want to use technology to build bridges between community members and the organizations that support them. There are lots of different social service organizations that work with people on issues such as housing, employment, food security, workforce development and training, and so on. And sometimes these organizations have trouble reaching the people that they're trying to serve, or collaborating with each other. And so we hope to address that problem by building bridges using technology, open source technology, so it's accessible and affordable by all. And our work is guided by the principles of inclusion, diversity, equity, and action. Action is a key word there, because we want to actually provide tools and technologies that people can use to get actionable and impactful work done. And this is sort of our vision and mission statement. It's all about equitable access to information, regardless of your social status, and leveraging technology and engaging with community partners for the equitable sharing of information. Oh, and I should say, welcome to Kate from St. Louis University. We are, Unity Foundation is partnering along with Microsoft Foundation, or Micronaut Foundation, forgive me, with the St. Louis University Computer Science Department and the Open Source Software Center that Kate is the faculty lead for. And I'll let Kate describe that, or we'll get into that at least.
Yes, thanks, Kate. Welcome.
Thank you.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and what SLU is doing?
Certainly, thank you. So I'm a faculty at St. Louis University in the Computer Science Department. And I joined the department almost 5 years ago, not quite, so finishing my 5th year here. And prior to that, I was working in industry for 10 years in the St. Louis area. So when I joined the department, I joined as my goal, or the reason I get hired, is to help build up the software engineering program. And I saw we have a lot of classes that do projects, so it's project-based courses, but the projects that we did were kind of throwaway projects, so to say. You do this in class, students work on it, they finish the semester, and then they're done. And we have some very, very talented students that could do real things. Right? They're about to graduate. They're graduating seniors from the computer science department. So it kind of seemed like a waste of talent and a waste of time. And I wanted to create an opportunity for these students to make something long lasting, and also to give them a chance to gain some realistic software development experience while they're at the university. Because as you all probably know, even entry-level jobs, they require some amount of experience, right? So entry-level job needs 2 years of experience. So that kind of doesn't add up. So I wanted to create a place where students could gain this realistic software development experience, but also a place where we could build useful things for other people. And those other people are predominantly other faculty at our university that are doing research. And as part of their research work, they all need software tools, right? Everybody needs an app, everybody needs some kind of tool to get the job done. So instead of going outside of the university and spending their money on contractors, I wanted them to come to us, to the computer science department, and say, hey, can you build this for us, right? Because we have the talent, we have the people that can do it. So last year, I received a grant from the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation to help me kind of get this started. So it's kind of like a little consulting company within the university, so to speak. And this initial seed grant money helped us kick it off. And we have a variety of exciting projects going, probably 12 at the moment, 12 or so, adding a few more. And they come predominantly from the St. Louis University faculty, but we also we are also doing a project with the Micronaut Foundation, which is why I'm here.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I did have a question about, I know you told us a little bit about you know, how you got started and why you were there. So what about your prior experience led you to this type of a role in what you're doing here?
Oh, yeah, certainly. So as I mentioned, so after I graduated with a PhD, I ended up in an industry job. It's a fintech company that's based here in St. Louis. And I bounced around various roles in that company. Some of it involved kind of core software development and API library development. Some of it involved testing and verification. And then there was a product management job that I did. So I kind of rotated around various roles in that company and really got a good appreciation for how things are done, how things are built, how things could be done better. And very valuable experience that ended up leading me to St. Louis University because they were looking for somebody with the industry experience. They wanted somebody to teach software engineering, but somebody who has done it in the past. Right, so that was a really great matchup for me because I was interested in switching to academia at that time. And at that point, I had 10 years under kind of 10 years of experience. So it worked out quite nicely and aligned nicely. But now I'm always looking to, I love coding, I love doing projects, and I love building tools. So I kind of a little side reason for starting this was so that I could be involved in building tools and helping other faculty with their research.
Awesome.
Hi, Kate. Yeah, you mentioned that this work was initiated through a grant from the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation. Can you tell us a little bit more about how the goals of that grant kind of align with the goals of the Open Source Software Center at SLU?
Certainly. So it was honestly a nice coincidence that I found it because a lot of the times, when people apply for grants, they'll see a grant solicitation and then they'll kind of create a project that would fit that grant solicitation. I've been looking for a way to get this started. Well, really, I've been thinking about getting this started for several years now, but last year I finally got brave enough to speak to somebody about this and to share my idea. And a lot of the people that I spoke to at the university were very excited about this and were very supportive, but they didn't have the money to kind of put behind it. I said, okay, this is great, but we need money so that we could have, so we could pay people like the graduate students, etc. So then I just started searching around, what's out there, right? Who supports such things? And I came across the Alfred P. Sloan grant solicitation. At the time, it was called Better Software for Science Initiative. They've actually formalized it. They changed it and made it a more formal open source program office grant solicitation now this year. But it aligned very nicely. Their mission was very broad. It was about educating the future workforce in software engineering and the software development, which is exactly what we are doing. Also making an impact supporting science with open source tools, which is also what we are doing. And so it was just a nice matchup for what I wanted to do and for what they were looking for. And they were also, very supportive throughout the application process once they liked my idea, and they helped me shape this idea into something that, they.
And I understand that you have different teams of students, both graduate students and undergraduate students working on these various projects.
Yeah.
And are the graduate students, can you tell us a little bit about the different roles that the different
Sure. So the way we work is we have a team, or we hire graduate students to be what we call kind of a tech lead or senior developer on the team, right? So,
okay.
And each graduate student is responsible, right now, is responsible for 2 different projects. But they don't work on this alone. also have, and those graduate students, they get paid a monthly stipend from this grant that I received from the Sloan Foundation. So that most of that money is just going to salaries, student salaries, program director salaries. But they're not working on those projects alone. They have teams of undergraduates working with them. And I would like to say with and not for, because it's a collective effort. We're all
Sure.
together. So those teams of undergraduates, they come from project-based courses, right? So these are the students that would be doing some kind of software project as part of their coursework anyway, but instead of doing just some kind of project, they're doing a project that we are leading at our organization, and that's going to benefit somebody with their research. So those undergraduate students, at the moment, they come from capstone, our senior capstone course. It's a 2-semester sequence, and we before you graduate as with a computer science degree, you have to do a capstone course, which means you have to do a software project. So all those capstone teams are working with us now, building broad range of software tools. Like I said, mostly faculty requested, but there's also a project with the Micronaut Foundation, which is exciting.
Right. And what do you see as sort of the special role that open source software plays in this, like Micronaut, in terms of the project kind of having a life after the students have completed the initial work?
Honestly, the open source just opens up so many more possibilities. To be frank with you, my original idea of having this place where people could come with their project requests, my original idea did not include open source until I found that that's what the Sloan Foundation was looking for. And it dawned on me that just makes sense, right? It makes sense to keep it open source, because if these software tools are made for research, right, one of the toughest things in research once it's published is replicating the results, right? Because everybody has their own little thing that they did, and they have it somewhere on some computer hidden. And it's very, very hard to replicate research results. So keeping all of the software as open source helps not just our faculty that are doing this work, but their collaborators around the world, and the people that are working in a similar area, right? That could be using the same tools to accomplish to achieve their goals. But also, aside from that, I see this as an opportunity to get support for these tools outside of our university, right? And we already had this happen kind of a little bit. So there's a project that we have where other people just reached out and said, hey, I want to work on this issue. Can you assign it to me? And that was great, right? This is really the goal, is to get it to a state where we can have contributors from all over the world contributing to these projects that we are building over here.
That's great. And I understand that one of the teams of students working in the lab are creating a library for the Micronaut framework that will, can you describe a little bit about what they're doing with Micronaut?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for sharing this. Their flyer over here. So my students created this flyer last semester to as kind of part of presenting their work. So this group of students is building a library that's going to run on a Raspberry Pi computer, right? So those little computers that are really hard to get now. So it's going to run on a Raspberry Pi, essentially, but as part of the Micronaut, it's going to be integrated with the Micronaut framework, right? So, and the intention is to be able to, it's kind of like an IoT application, is what I see it. So Internet of Things. So you can run a little server, you can run a server on this, on a Raspberry Pi, and the server would use the library that my students are building. And through this library, you'd be able to control a variety of peripheral devices, right? Whatever it is that you have connected, wired to your Raspberry Pi through those pins that you're seeing on the picture on the left side. So maybe it's some sort of switch that's connected. Maybe you want to turn something on. And since the library can communicate with the Raspberry Pi hardware, and then it's integrated with the Micronaut framework, which is of course can be used to run your web applications, right, with the microservices. So it kind of becomes an interesting, a useful IoT library that other people can use, other people in educational settings can use, but also maybe people, hobbyists, and maybe professionally.
Right. Yeah, I see a couple of really, at least two big advantages coming out of this. First of all, this work that the students are doing will live on as part of the Micronaut open source project, which is great. Other folks can pick it up and use it and extend it. But also the students are going to be gaining very valuable real world experience building IoT applications that they can take into their, after their university life, and they hook up with an employer, then they can carry those skills with them. And the software that they worked on is something they can point to in GitHub. So that's really cool.
Yeah, and this is not, a straightforward, easy project. And those are really my favorite when, we have projects of various degrees of difficulty. And in some projects, students run into complications and challenges. And I personally love that when they do. They don't love it so much, but I see, because my goal was to give them a realistic experience, and running into challenges is very realistic. That's just what happens. So while they're not loving it, I feel like that's preparing them better for their lives after graduation.
Yeah, we all know that things don't go exactly as planned once you get on the ground and start working on a real challenging project. Yeah. Developing those problem solving skills to work through those kinds of things is very important. And that fits in with the role of Unity Foundation in this, is that we're very focused on workforce development as one of our key initiatives in terms of uplifting members of the community, helping them develop the skills and find the opportunities that they can apply to to raise themselves out of poverty. And so this kind of workforce development effort is really important from Unity's perspective. What is Micronaut Foundation's role with your lab, Kate, other than just making the Micronaut software available?
So we have a representative from the Micronaut Foundation, a software engineer that works with this team, right? So he came in and he trained the team on the Micronaut framework, and then they periodically, from my understanding, get together and present what they have so far and have discussions on where to go next, right? What to do. And also, when we run into problems, of course, this is the person we rely on and reach out to for guidance, how to move on, how to overcome those challenges. So that really does align with the Unity's Foundation, one of the missions for the workforce development, like you mentioned, Steve.
Right. Yeah. Unity Foundation is trying to do whatever we can to help connect suppliers of training with people who need that training to develop their workforce skills. And so this fits right in with that. We're also building I guess you could kind of call it a secure digital network that'll support collaborative relationships between different service organizations and like training organizations, universities, people who are looking for work and are looking for training, I should say. And eventually this will grow, but this kind of work I think is important in help seeding that those skills in future software engineers, which is always good. I think at this point, I'd like to see from you, Kate, where you see this going in the future. I know you mentioned that these projects would live on beyond the time that the students are there at the university, and that you're also actively trying to work with other members of the community, other organizations. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, certainly. So these students, right, will be graduating at the end of, or at the end of the semester. So they'll be graduating in May. But the nice thing about keeping all these projects within our organization, within Open Source with SLU, allows us to continue working on these projects a little bit more smoothly than in the past, right? Because they're all kept under the same roof. We're all aware of what's going on, right? The people involved in this organization. So while this team will be graduating and other teams will be graduating, right? Projects, you know, they're never really complete, right? If it's a useful product, if it's a useful tool, it needs to live on. So I see a variety of things happening as we start a new school year. Some of the projects that we're working on will be continued by new student teams. Some of them will try to build support from outside community, right? We're also trying to partner with a variety of organizations to give these training opportunities to other people, right? So if you're taking programming courses, but you want you want practical experience, you can come and contribute to our projects. So we're just, it's not quite there yet, but we have some potential plans and ideas for partnering with various organizations and giving them maybe like a certificate program for contributing, for working with Open Source with SLU. So kind of to summarize, so continued support by the student teams using Open Source with SLU as the organization under which they work, expanding our network of contributors, right, kind of growing that. And I think that really needs to happen, and we need to put more focus on that, right? We had a little bit of success with it on one of the projects, but I think if these projects are to be supported and to live on, we need to build this network of contributors because we can't be contributing to starting new projects and contributing to old projects at the same time. That's going to be a lot. And then yes, we will be building new projects as well as faculty needs arise and as they get grant support for their research. It's our hope that they would, or it's kind of our plan, is that they would come to us with their grant money saying, please build this for me, right? And that's how we'll be able to sustain ourselves financially in the future, is through such requests being funded by faculty's grants.
Great. And speaking from Unity Foundation's perspective, we really look forward to continuing the relationship we have with St. Louis University and the Open Source Center. And we look forward to seeing some of these students graduate and take these fantastic skills that they've developed out into the community and to their employers, and let us know how we can help.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Kate. And we are excited to be a part of the lab and the program that you have going on. And it's just really exciting to see the Micronaut framework, which is a few years old now, but already seeing that being taught in the university to the students. So having more folks join the community is exciting, and using the framework. So
yeah.
So thank you for allowing that to happen and inviting us to be a part of this with you.
Thank you. And if anybody's interested in other projects we're working on, they are on our website. I can put that in chat kind of as you continue. Our Open Source with SLU website, you can see a variety of projects with their flyers and a form to submit project requests, right? So because we accept requests from internal, but also from outside community.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for joining us, both of you. I'm going to bring in Sergio and Graham, and we're gonna have a little bit of tech talk here. But I would like to first have a little shout out to our partnering framework here. So this month is the 15th anniversary of the Grails framework, and we're really excited to share that and see how the framework is continuing to grow. And we have folks on the Micronaut team that are part of the Grails team. So it's a conjoined team. And so we are definitely excited that we are seeing the technology, like I said, continue and to grow after all of these years. And of course, we have Graham here, who's one of the co-founders of the framework. And so Graham, do you have any comments or things that you might want to share about Grails?
Well, I can't believe it's been 15 years. That's insane.
A long time.
Seems like, starting to feel old now. Yeah, no, it's been a long time, but it was fantastic building the technology and seeing the community grow, and Grails is phenomenal at what it does. If you still want to build CRUD applications super fast in a dynamic language, Grails is awesome. And very proud of what we achieved with Grails.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I know that the companies and people that use the technology are also very thankful. So all right.
And it's been a massive influence to Micronaut as well, which we'll talk about later, but I'll hand over to Sergio to talk about Micronaut.
Sergio, do you want to give us a sneak peek at what's to come here in the next release of Micronaut?
Yeah, let's try to, let me see if I am able to share my screen. Can you stop sharing and I will share so that I can go? The slides, hopefully, Graham, you can help me to talk about many of the points here. Let me see if I know how to go full screen with Google Slides. There you go. Micronaut 4. So, biggest question. When are we going to release Micronaut 4? So we are actively working on releasing the first milestone, hopefully within the next few weeks. We hope to release the GA, the general availability version of Micronaut 4, probably in the first half of 2023. So it's really almost here. Today I have basically put together a couple of slides about what's coming. There are many other features that we will probably implement between milestones, but let me just highlight a couple, and Graham can help me out to fill some of the gaps. So first of all, so Micronaut 3 supports Java 8, Java 11, and Java 17. So the last 3 LTS releases from Java. We will continue to support Micronaut 3. So if you want to stay on Java 8 and Java 11, Micronaut 3 will be there for you, but we are gonna set the baseline for Micronaut 4 to Java 17. There are a couple of reasons. First of all, it allows us to develop APIs using modern Java features. So things such as records, sealed classes, pattern matching. So there are many features right now that we cannot use. So just by setting the baseline to Java 17, we will be able to leverage those features in the internal Micronaut code and also in the public APIs that you all micro developers use. Also, we believe that the cloud vendors, they are ready now for Java 17. So Micronaut is a framework that supports, and we have integrations with all the four major clouds, whether you want to use Oracle Cloud, Amazon AWS, Microsoft Azure, or Google Cloud. We have integration for those, and almost all of the services, whether they are Azure functions, OCA functions, or AWS Elastic Beanstalk, or Google Cloud Functions, they all have already support for Java 17. So I think many of the Micronaut community deployed to the cloud, and they're like already like pure Java runtimes for Java 17. So I think the ecosystem is ready for that. Also, Java 17 is significantly faster. So we see that in our own test suite. So we see like, for example, Micronaut Guides, which is a huge test suite. Java 17 is like 30% faster. So I think all of us, the framework developers and the Micronaut community going to Java 17 will mean just faster application just by doing that. And it will save us also like a lot of continuous integration time that currently is spent waiting for Java 8 builds to complete. And that will in turn for us allow us to basically deliver features faster to you. And the last thing that I wanted to say is all of the Micronaut documentation and the Micronaut guides tutorials, whenever we show like a code snippet, those code snippets are coming from real Java code. And right now we are constrained to using code. So we cannot show a lot of modern Java code. So although you can, nowadays you can use Java 17 with Micronaut 3, if you go to our documentations, all of our documentation seems like we are like still living in the Java 8 world. So this will allow us to basically like update all our docs to show a modern Java, which to be honest is, I think Java has made a significantly a more pleasant developer experience if you are like working with Java 17 than if you are working with Java 8, and that will reflect in our docs as well. Do you want to highlight anything about the Java 17 baseline change, Graham?
No, I think you more or less covered it. I think, Java 17 is actually the first release of Java since Java 8, where you can really make impactful improvements to the design of the API, the features that adds like records and CL classes, CL types, and so forth. So it just makes sense at this point if we want to modernize a lot of our APIs to move towards.
What's also next in Micronaut 4? So we support in Micronaut 3, we support Groovy 3, Apache Groovy 3, and in Micronaut 4, we will support Apache Groovy 4. Just today, we were like updating our builds to use the latest release of Groovy 4, which is 4.09. There are some parts here that are still on the air, so there is still no GORM release which supports Groovy 4. So if you want to keep using GORM until there is a release, you will need to stay with Micronaut 3. But yeah, Groovy 4 has some really nice improvements, and especially in the compatibility with modern Java. So I think our Micronaut Groovy users are going to be really happy to use Groovy 4, and we are really looking forward to it. The third language that you can build Micronaut applications with, so you can build Micronaut applications with Java, Groovy, or Kotlin. So we are upgrading to Kotlin 1.8 as well. And speaking of Kotlin, we have quite big news, which maybe, Graham, you can talk more about. So right now in Micronaut 3, we power our Kotlin support thanks to KPT, which stands for Kotlin Annotation Processing. And that has been on maintenance. And I think with the efforts of Graham and the efforts also of James Klee, and I think Dennis as well, we have managed to have an experimental support for our Kotlin users to use KSP, which seems to be the future for our Micronaut Kotlin users. So can you talk more about it, Graham?
Yeah, sure. So, so historically, the way we've supported Kotlin through is CAPT or KAPT, which what that does is a compiler plugin that Kotlin supports regular Java annotation processes. So you can configure any normal Java annotation processor like Micronaut and all work with Kotlin code. The disadvantage of CAPT is that the way it works is it looks at the Kotlin code and it produces Java stubs for the Kotlin code. So it will generate stubs, which will then pass to the Java annotation processes. So this has a number of disadvantages in that that we've had to fight with over the years for our Kotlin support. One is obviously compiler speed. It's quite slow generating Java stubs and then feeding those into our Java annotation processes. And then the other problem is you lose a lot of the information about the original Kotlin syntax. So we've had trouble supporting certain Kotlin features like delegates and a lot of the native syntax that we don't see because we see the Java stubs that are generated from the Kotlin syntax, which is not the same thing as the original Kotlin code. So all of these problems, I think, were in general a problem for all annotation processes in the Kotlin. And annotation processes in general are used quite extensively in the Kotlin world because Kotlin is used in Android, and Android is all based on annotation processes. So KSP is something that came out of a partnership between, I believe, JetBrains and Google, which was to build a replacement for CAPT that models the Kotlin language natively with its own annotation processing infrastructure. The downside of KSP is obviously it doesn't support existing Java annotation processes. So we have an existing Java annotation processor and it just doesn't work with KSP today. So, so yeah, we set about rewriting the compiler for Micronaut 4, which it's one of the reasons why Micronaut 4 has taken so long. So one of the big changes is we split the runtime and the compiler module into separate modules, and the compiler is now more independent, and we've rewritten the compiler to be more less coupled to the Java annotation processing API. We had a lot, which we needed to do anyway to support Groovy because we had a lot of duplication between Groovy and Java as well. So there's a lot less duplication between Groovy, Java, and Kotlin now. We've abstracted and rewritten everything, and we were able to plug in now any new AST. So the first one we're doing, we may do other ASTs in the future, but this is KSP. So the job was essentially to model the KSP API in our basically modeling it in our API and then feeding it to the Kotlin KSP processing infrastructure. And now it's more or less working. We're still testing it and so forth, and refining it. And I'm sure it'll be stable and looking pretty good by the time Micronaut 4 GA comes around. And in testing, it's already a lot faster, right? So there's no stub generation, and it's all incremental. So it incrementally compiles everything, and it's going to be a big win for our Kotlin user base because compilation is significantly faster with KSP.
So our plan is to have, so when you generate a Kotlin application, we're going to give you like the option to use either KPT or KSP. We encourage people to to start moving or trying KSP. As Graham said, is right now it's going to be a little bit experimental, but as he said, hopefully by the time with GA is going to be the way to go.
Yeah, and I think there may still be people that want to carry on using CAPT, especially if they have other annotation processes, because basically KSP doesn't support existing Java annotation processes. So there may still be people that have Micronaut plus some other annotation processes that they're already using, so it's going to be around for a while. Keep CAPT. Even if it's in maintenance mode, yeah, it'll be some time before our Kotlin user base can switch fully to KSP.
Yeah, so if you want to keep using KPT, you will be able to do that in Micronaut for no worries at all. So virtual thread support. So you will have to, so we have added like virtual threads support. This is, I think you have to enable preview in, you have to have at least Java 19. Could that be, Graham? This is a Java 19 feature.
That's correct. So it's a preview feature, in fact, in Java 19.
So you have to enable preview, and yeah. I think the way we have implemented, and kudos to Jonas who have led the implementation of this feature, is quite getting out of the way for users. So if you are a Micronaut user and you are using the native runtime, you should be aware of this annotation called at execute on. We have been telling you whenever you are doing like blocking operations, that's fine. You don't have to use reactive programming if you don't want to. But remember to annotate your methods with at execute and tell like delegate to tax executor IO to like upload it to the IO thread pool. And what we have done is we have this other tax executor called blocking, and if you have virtual threads enabled, that will basically use virtual threads. If you don't, that will use the IO thread pool. So I think going forward in Micronaut 4, our recommendation is use blocking as illustrated here in the slide. And if you are not yet in a Java version with virtual threads enabled, your code will still work fine. And once you are there, you will enjoy the virtual thread support. Is there anything else you would like to say about this, Graham?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of undercovers work as well in Micronaut for a lot of because in Micronaut 3 the whole stack is reactive, right? Based on Netty and reactive programming and so forth. And it turns out when using virtual threads that those extra frames and that the reactive libraries add some overhead. So we've actually done a lot of internal refactoring work to make sure that if you're doing this, for example, that there's essentially as few as possible, hopefully none, reactive frames in the code path when you're using virtual threads. So there's been a lot of internal work as well to basically prepare Micronaut for a world where virtual threads are more common.
Then we have, as you can expect, we are taking the opportunity to update to the major versions of dependencies. So we are updating major versions in all modules. I have just a couple of the ones that you are going to get. Doesn't matter what you use because that's kind of Micronaut core. One of them is SLA4J 2. So our code uses the SLA4J API, and we generate applications that use lockback, which is an implementation of SLA4J, and we are updating also to the latest version of lockback, 145. Micro 3 is still using 1 to 11, I believe, of clockback. So when you update to Micro 4, you're going to be like using the latest of both. If you are not doing anything custom, you're not going to feel any difference. If you have any like a custom configurator of lockback, there are a couple of breaking API changes in lockback, so you will have to, don't worry, it's not a lot of code change, but there are a couple of breaking changes that you will have to adapt to. Jakarta transition. So we have been moving to the Jakarta namespace. Already in Micro 3, you could use many Jakarta notations. In Micro 4, we are like trying to like finish the transition. And we have like migrated, for example, the Micro Tarex, the Micro JaxRS module to Jakarta, Micro Tmail to use Jakarta Mail, Jakarta Inject, the Jakarta security we already supports in Jakarta Inject as well. In the validation, we are moving as well to the Jakarta constraints. So I know transitioning your applications to the Jakarta namespace is not the most exciting thing, but is something that we have to do. And hopefully, Micro 4 will be the end of the JavaX to Jakarta namespace transition. Is there anything you would like to say about this, Graham?
No, I think you covered that topic pretty well.
So amidst improvements, injection of maps, this, I'm pretty certain you coded this, Graham, so you're probably the right person to explain it, but so right now in Micro 3, you cannot like inject a map where the key is the name qualifier of the bean and the value is the bean itself, right? And in Micro 4, we support that.
Yeah, so you can, so in Micronaut, in Micronaut 3, the way that you would do that is you would inject a list of kind of bean references or something like that, if I remember, and then from there you can, if I'm trying to remember the API, it's bean registration, I think, and then you can get the name from the registration bean. But you know, it's not as practical as, and also it kind of couples you a bit to a Micronaut API. So it's much nicer to say, give me a map of string to object, and the string becomes the qualifier or the name of the bean, and whatever it is you define, and the value is the bean itself. So I think that would be quite useful.
The use case that I see with this a lot is all the people that are like building like import functionality into their applications, and they need to have like a parser for CSV, a parser for an Excel file, a parser for XML, and they typically like have like the same API for all those parsers and a different name qualifier. Now it will be really nice, like just to import the map, to inject the map into your controller, and then based maybe on the media type of the attachment, you can like use the appropriate bean to do that. You also worked in improving the nesting of configuration properties and each properties object, which is always a fun topic.
Well, I think there's a couple of things related here. Probably that one thing that's missing from the slide is the improvements to the error reporting, but they're kind of like related things. So, you know, in Micronaut 3, you can have and each property that can only go like one level deep, I think, and then if you try and do 2 levels, it gets confused. So now you can have nest each properties, you know, which is nice. But we didn't want to introduce that until we had sorted out the error handling, because one of the confusing things that has historically happened with each property is that when the bean is missing, it's not clear why. For some people, you know, for example, they don't know why the bean is missing because it's like dynamically driven by configuration. Now we unwrap the error so that we say, you know, no such bean exception, but it's missing because we're missing this entry in your configuration file, which is nice. which fixes the long-standing problem that a lot of people have run into when using Micronaut data, where I think it's some weird error like repository operations missing being exception when you basically have a problem with the indentation of your application.yaml or something. And the other thing that's been improved with error reporting is for disabled beans. So if a bean is disabled by bean requirements, like that requires property or it requires some other bean, and you get a no such bean exception, we actually unwrap that so that you get this bean is not present because you're missing this property, or this other bean is missing, or this class is missing, or so error reporting has really been improved a lot in Micronaut 4, and I think users will appreciate that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Error, the nicer the error, the more productive we are all. So a couple of things. So as you see here in slides, so we support like now custom HTTP status codes as well. It's probably like a narrow use case, but some people needed that, and we support that. We have transitioned also to using, and this is something that may affect people. So we encourage people to use the conversion service API. So if you have like a custom converter in your application, don't use the shared conversion, but use the conversion service API. And the last thing that I wanted to say, and this is something that we take quite seriously. So one of the things that we try to do in Micronaut is focus on the things that are never going to be a bad idea to focus on, things that all of our users want. So when we have like Micronaut 10, we want like Micronaut to be always as fast as we can. We have done a big effort, and shout out to Dennis here, who had done a lot of internal refactoring to try to improve the performance of the framework. So Micronaut 4, and we are doing like some internal benchmarking to measure that. Micronaut 4 is faster, significantly faster than Micronaut 3. So yeah, that's another good reason to upgrade to Micronaut 4, is that you are going to get out of the box performance improvements to your applications. I always like to say this thing. That Micronaut is fast is not only important when you go to production, it's also really important when you develop and when you test. And the faster the framework is, the more productive you're going to be, and the more you're going to focus on your code base, because you're not going to be waiting for the IT to run your test or for your application to start. And that's something that we really take seriously. And Micronaut 4 will be faster. So that's another good reason to update. This is more internal thing because typically you don't see this directly in your applications, but if you are like building a library, this is something that, so our build plugins have hide it away. So Micronaut 3 publishes a BOM, a bill of materials, and that's why when you like include, I don't know, Micronaut security in your application, you don't have to define a version in your code. So you just specify like io.micronaut security, and you don't specify the version. And we publish this bill of material, which essentially contains all the versions of the different modules and Micronaut core that we know play well together. So what we have done, and that historically was tied to Micronaut core. So when we say Micronaut core, we typically talk about the whole dependency injection engine. And what we have done is we have moved this to an external module called Micronaut Platform. A Micronaut Platform will publish the Micronaut BOM, so the Micronaut as a framework, the whole BOM, and also a Gradle version catalog. We have been using Gradle versions catalog internal for our modules, and it's a really nice development experience to discover dependencies without having to navigate and search for Maven coordinates. So hopefully we can bring that also to starters, so that you are able like to, if you choose to, when you are using Gradle, generate your applications using Gradle version catalogs. And the new dependency that we have here in the slides, Micronaut core BOM, that's going to be the BOM only for Micronaut. So one of the things that we have been doing slowly but steadily all through the year is all of our modules, they publish now BOM. And this has been taking some time because we have more than 50 modules, but core will not be different. So core will publish its own BOM. Every module will publish its own BOM, and Micronaut platform will be like the BOM as a framework. So as I said, if you are like using our build plugins, this is probably something that you will not encounter when you upgrade from Micronaut 3 to Micronaut 4. But if you are like building a library, that's a change that you will have to take into account. One of the nice benefits about using Java 17 as a baseline is that we can use features that were introduced in Java. For example, Java introduced a Java HTTP client, and we have been working on creating a. So this is kind of one of the things that I like about Micronaut, and this is something that I don't think we say enough, is that we are quite agnostic. So we let you like build Micronaut applications with Maven or Gradle, with Java, Groovy or Kotlin, with different testing frameworks such as JUnit, Spock, CodeTest. We let you different runtimes. So we talk often about Netty, but we have runtimes for, we have servlet runtimes such as Tomcat, Undertow, Jetty. We have also like pure runtimes in serverless functions such as in AWS Lambda, or in Azure, or in GCP. And in Micronaut 4, we'll have two implementations of the Micronaut HTTP client. So the Micronaut HTTP client, the one that you are using right now in Micronaut 3, is based on Netty. And we are going to be adding a new one, a new implementation based on the Java HTTP client, which was introduced, if I remember correctly, in Java 11. So if you are not doing anything fancy, maybe this one will suffice you. And maybe this will be like a slightly smaller footprint for your application. So we'll have two implementations of the HTTP client. The Netty one will have a couple of features that we are still not supporting in the Java HTTP client, but I think for 90% of our users, they could use either or interchangeably. So yeah, that's coming in Micronaut 4. Declarative filter methods. This is gonna be nice for users. So we have right now we have in Micronaut 3 and Micronaut 4. We support the filter concept similar to servlet filters. You could have like a class annotated with a filter, which implements HTTP server filter or HTTP client filter, and you could like using a reactive programming paradigm. This ties into what Graham was saying. Like not everyone wants to write reactive code, and for most things you probably don't use like to write reactive code. So you just, for example, want to you want to create like an HTTP server filter to log all the HTTP headers in a request because you are like debugging something. This will basically allow you to create a singleton and annotate it with either a request filter or response filter, and it supports like offloading things, as you see here to the. So if you are like doing something blocking, so in this example, trace service filter is trace service is supposed to be doing something blocking. You can annotate, so you can combine the annotations of request filter with a execute on to essentially tell where you want to execute or to execute if you want to execute it in the, if you are using the Netty runtime in the Netty event loop, or if you want to execute it in an, if you are doing anything blocking, you should of course offload it. If you have in your applications a filter already, fear not, those will keep working. So we encourage you to check the new API. I think you will enjoy it, but they will keep working. So this is another kind of another option to Micronaut users. Is there anything you would like to say about the declarative filter methods, Graham?
Yeah, so yeah, like you mentioned, it's basically aligning with the virtual thread stuff in that we're forward thinking of APIs that we can introduce where you don't need reactive programming anymore, right? So if you have only, for example, filters declared in the manner of the slide, there's no, which don't include any reactive code at all. We can optimize the code path to, remove any stack frames that involve reactive programming. So, in general, there are places in the Micronaut API where we have exposed publisher or or subscriber or something from the reactive stream spec, and we're just generally looking at the framework and saying, where can we make it simpler, where users don't have to do that. Okay, that's all.
Thank you. So a couple of changes also. So Micronaut runtime is, we have split it. So Ryan mentioned before, we have moved all the APIs that were only the we need at compilation time, they are in their own dependency, so that you don't have to have that code in your applications. And we have also splitted some of the things that you may not be using, and we have basically done some parts of Micronaut a bit more granular. So one of them is retry. So if you were using things such as retryable, or you were using the recoverability functionality of the HTTP client in Micronaut, you can still use that, but you will have to add this extra dependency into your class path. Another one is service discovery. So if you are using service discovery features, you'll have to add this dependency to your application. So Micronaut discovery. And a similar one is WebSocket. So if you are using Micronaut HTTP server, but you are not using WebSockets, then fine, you will have less code into your application. If you want to use server WebSocket, then you will have to add this extra dependency into your project. Is there anything you would like to say about this?
Yeah, I mean, you talked about how Micronaut, has been designed to be very modular and flexible and support lots of different use cases. And this is just, as we've seen Micronaut being used in more and more different scenarios, including things like, serverless is a very popular work platform to target for Micronaut right now. Less is more is definitely a benefit in those types of scenarios. So we're just shrinking the core runtime and making things so that more granular, so that you can pick and choose what features that you want. And that means, you just have more flexibility to, and, with the splitting of the core, the compiler code from the runtime as well. I think Micronaut 4 apps, basic apps, are 3 megabytes smaller in jar file size than they were for Micronaut 3, right? Which is a big deal.
Indeed, yeah.
Shrinking the overall amount of code, the surface of the code that's deployable, right? So yeah, that's the goal here, is to just make it more modular.
Exactly. Just have the code in your application that you are really using, and not more. We have been moving some things outside of core. So one of the things that I have here in the slides is Micronaut session. So if you are using Micronaut session, you're going to have to change the Maven group ID. And so this is under io.micronaut.session. So that's probably going to happen to a couple of modules. But yeah, fear not, we still support HTTP sessions. You just have to change the dependency. And that's all I have for Micronaut 4. So we are quite excited about. As I said, we are almost there to release the first milestones. Let me check the chat to see if there are any questions. So Logan's happy about Java 17. Absolutely. We are happy to use it ourselves as well. We are still living kind of in the Java 8 world, so it's always nice for us to move to the modern APIs. It's a question about conversion service. Yeah, exactly this. So we support, so we have like kind of some conversions baked into the framework, but you can create your own. And that's kind of what the conversion API is for. So I can send you like a link to the conversion documentation. Is Michael thinking about participating in Project Leiden?
I'll probably
a question for you.
pitch in on that one.
Yeah.
So obviously, you know, Oracle is an engineering partner, and we work with the GraalVM team every day, and the Java team as well. So we are participating in the way of feeding our input into Project Leiden. So one of the steps recently that's been taken is that GraalVM is going to be contributed to the OpenJDK, which is the big step. So now GraalVM releases will be aligned with the OpenJDK releases, and yeah, we you know, as a group in the GraalVM group are actively participating in Leiden and guiding us direction and involved in mainness and discussions and everything. So we're not Micronaut and the Micronaut Foundation are not directly involved with Leiden, but we are participating quietly there.
Yeah, one of the biggest advantages that we have by having Oracle as I mean, we have many advantages, but one of the advantages that we have by having Oracle as an engineering partner of the Micronaut Foundation is that they work elbow to elbow with the GraalVM people. So if you are like looking for a framework that has great integration with GraalVM and you want to generate native executables for your application, Micronaut should be well positioned to help you do that. I pasted a link to custom type converter documentation that shows the conversion service in action. I think we went a little bit off the hour, Jen. Do you want to pick it from here?
Yeah. Thank you all so much for hanging in there with us. As Sergio said, I know we went a little over, but all great stuff to discuss. And I think was one question in the Q&A, and Sergio is going to go ahead and get you, Tristan, an answer on that. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Ciao, ciao. Thank you, Graham. Ciao.
Bye. Thanks, Graham.
Bye.